Hey, folks, today's episode brought to you by one of my favorite sponsors, Sunset Lake Sebade. SunsetLakeSebade.com. Use the code LEFTISBEST. Get 20% off. Get 20% off what, you say, Sam? Well, only the best of Sebade products. They've got tinctures. They've got tinctures to help you sleep. They've got tinctures with melatonin in 2 different flavors in multiple concentrations. They've got smokables. They've got keef. They've got flour. They've got pre-rolls. They've got fudge and coffee. They've got salve and lotions. They've got gummies, all sorts of gummies. Gummies with to help you relax. Gummies to help you focus. Gummies to help you sleep. Gummies to allow you to have a little bit of fun because some of those have THC in them, as well as the Delta-9 gummies. All of these products, third-party tested. They're a great company. SunsetLakeSebade.com. $20 minimum wage, mostly employee-owned. They have contributed thousands of dollars to things like strike relief funds and refugee resettlement, carceral reform, Planned Parenthood, mutual aid, food pantries. Just a great company, a great bunch of folks up there. They take care of the land, integrated pest management, no pesticides, and they regenerative farming practices that they developed with the University of Vermont. Check it out. SunsetLakeSebade.com. Use the coupon code LEFTISBEST, and you will get, that's right, 20% off. And now for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, June 7th, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Heather Parton, columnist from Salon.com, or you may know her as Digby, from the blog Hullabaloo. Also on the program today, job growth blows through expectations. Biden in Normandy commemorating D-Day. New report, Clarence Thomas has accepted millions of dollars worth of gifts in the past decade. Bannon ordered to prison on July 1st. Netanyahu to address a joint session of Congress on July 24th. U.S. and 16 countries call on Hamas and Israel to close on a ceasefire agreement as the NAACP calls on Biden to halt weapons sales to Israel. Alex Jones has agreed he must sell InfoWars to pay off his defamation suit. Polling shows a slight change in the wake of Trump's conviction. The Biden administration scrambles to deal with fallout from its new, probably illegal, asylum policy. Lastly, South Korean Samsung workers strike for the first time ever. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is
Casual Friday.
There you go. Casual Friday.
So casual.
Well, this is going to drive me crazy. I got to do this.
Oh, there you go. Whoop.
Yep. There
Boom.
we go. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all good.
Folks, welcome. It is Casual Friday. It is before all the craziness begins. Let me just acknowledge that, yes, summertime now. I have officially moved to wearing short sleeve shirts, as I do come, past Memorial Day. Everybody knows that Sam wears his short sleeve shirts on Fridays. Of course, I'm going to move soon to my button-down short-sleeve shirts on the weekdays, but it's inevitable.
It'll be a gradual transition, so people don't get freaked out about it.
I didn't want to. Yeah, Friday is the easiest way to introduce this to people. Thanks for joining us, folks. At the end of the week, we got a lot to talk about. Just a reminder: it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you get the free show, free of commercials, and the fun half. And your support really helps if you listen to the show once or twice a week, 3 times a week, 5 times a week. By all means, it is our members that make this show function, frankly. This story keeps unraveling. We're going to have some cases that theoretically will be decided or at least determined as to whether they'll go forward from the Supreme Court regarding Donald Trump. And aside from the general corruptness of someone like Clarence Thomas, maybe we'll talk a little bit about that later. Clarence Thomas, we've seen this reporting from ProPublica. We know the story of how this developed. Clarence Thomas has received millions of dollars, dwarfing any other number of gifts, because now he's had to go back and basically check off which gifts he's gotten, et cetera, because he was caught not recording these things. Millions of gifts from Harlan Crow, a billionaire who was recruited by Leonard Leo, who was the former head of the Federalist Society, the guy who's basically in charge of taking care of the judges. When Clarence Thomas 20 years ago threatened to quit the court because he didn't have enough money to function, Leonard Leo introduced him to what became his new best friend, Harlan Crow, a billionaire, who then proceeded to pay for things like his mom's house, his kids' private school education, and take him on private jet vacations multiple times a year for years. And Clarence Thomas decided, you know what, my life as a justice is not so bad. I think I'll stay on the court. It's almost like getting your payoff. It's really having your cake and eating it too. And so while Clarence Thomas clearly, and I don't know if he changed any of his votes, he just found a benefactor who appreciated his work and paid him to stay on the court, essentially. Sam Alito refuses to recuse himself from any case involving Trump and January 6th, despite the fact that his wife now clearly was flying flags in support of, and according to him, his wife. Alito had nothing to do with it, of course, except for the problem is that now it seems the story he told Congress in sending a letter and explaining the incident was, at the very least, according to a person involved in this story, a serious mistake, if not an outright lie. This is Sam Alito's neighbor on CNN the other day. This is Emily Barden, Sam Alito's neighbor, and Baden, excuse me. And
very close to Biden.
Yeah, apparently, yes. Here she is explaining that Sam Alito either made a big mistake when he said the wrong things to Congress, or he lied.
And so, okay, so now let me get to the upside down American flag, because, and to go through this in a bit of detail, because I think here is where your point about what he is alleging happened here does not comport with the timeline. So the flag is flying. Justice Alito says his wife flew it because she was, quote, greatly distressed by her disputes with you. And in a letter just explaining his motivation to put up the flag, he says, and I quote him again, Emily, a house on the street displayed a sign attacking her personally. I guess that's the "you are complicit" or that you were just talking about, but that you say was not directed at her. And a man who was living in the house at the time trailed her all the way down the street and berated her in my presence using foul language, including what I regard as the vilest epithet that can be addressed to a woman, which is the C word.
Liberal.
Now, Let me just break this down.
Yeah,
Emily.
no, I
You
was going to
say
say, is it liberal or is it like you have you have your own job?
Yes.
Or
No fault divorce supporter.
you had the right to vote. Go back.
that can be addressed to a woman, which is the C word. Now, let me just break this down, Emily. You say it was you who said those things. It was not your now husband. But you say Alito is lying here for another very basic reason. Can you explain?
So at best, he's mistaken, but at worst, he's just outright lying. And there was a neighbor who even witnessed this and witnessed me using that unfortunate term. And what else I said in that interaction is so important.
Pause it for 1 second. I just want to say kudos to this lady for owning up for saying that word, and also for deploying it in perhaps one of the most appropriate and maybe the only appropriate circumstance one
A
can
righteous
deploy
slur.
that
Yep, 100%.
And what else I said in that interaction is so important, and I hope it's not getting forgotten in the discourse around the word. In that interaction, she approached us, started screaming at us, used all of our full names, which to me felt like a threat because you're a stranger. We don't know you. You don't know us. How do you know our full names? And I started yelling, "How dare you?" Because they both were there at the same time. So I said, "How dare you? You're on the highest court in the land. You represent the Supreme Court of the United States. You're behaving this way. You're yelling at a neighbor. You're harassing us. How dare you? Shame on you." And I did use the word. So if that in any way, distracts from that real message, I do regret using the word because the message is important. It's like the power imbalance between these people and me. I'm nobody to them. So, and the fact they took umbrage with my sign is telling enough. It shows like a bias, doesn't it? I mean.
And I want to talk about that, but just to be very clear on the timing, he's saying that she put up the flag because you said those things. But when we look at, there was actually, you called 911 on that day. There's actually a police report about that incident. And that shows that the timing just doesn't work, right? The flag was up before. The flag picture that the New York Times had was weeks before that incident actually happened, where you called her that word. So what he's saying here, you're saying at best mistaken, but it certainly is it's categorically by the dates not true, right? She didn't put the flag up for that reason.
Absolutely, 100%. And that's what I want to really drive home to people is that this happened on February 15th. And we know that because they had been harassing us so long that we were like, we need a paper trail of this. Like, we better call the cops right now. Like I said, these are federally protected people. They have security detail. They represent the judicial system. They are the law. And I am just a regular person. And so it's, we called the cops that day. It was February 15th. And I think the photo of the flag was on January 17th.
Yes.
So
the timing doesn't add up.
Yeah. What a we haven't seen such a righteous neighbor since Rand Paul's neighbor.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, here's the thing. There's no argument as to whether Alito lied about this. There's no argument. There's a paper trail. He's lying to Congress. I mean, what's it going to take for John Roberts to stand up and say, okay, this seems to like it's going a little far here. And, the guy should recuse himself. He's lied to Congress. We know that he was the source of a leak during the ACA decision back in 2012. There's every reason to believe that he was the leak of the Dobbs decision came from him. And the guy is a category. He lied to Congress. This is a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
And the idea that Dick Durbin is not hauling these people into Congress, even if he can't impeach them because he doesn't have the votes, is just...
Even if they won't show up.
It's just amazing.
bring that neighbor on, not on CNN. Why is she on CNN instead of a hearing that Dick Durbin is holding, right? I mean, she lives right around the corner in Washington, D.C. It'd be pretty easy to figure out the situation.
Material witness about this political symbolism coming from
About this
Exactly.
political
the Supreme
symbolism,
Court.
and now every reason to believe that the Supreme Court justice has made a deliberate lie to Congress. I mean, not a great look for one of 9 people who basically dictate the laws of this country.
And she said it there too, which we've made this point before, but she is not one of the most powerful people in the country. I mean, definitely in the top 50, we have Sam Alito. The fact that he felt the need to, and him or his wife, acting in a rogue manner, which I have a hard time believing, felt the need to not just exert power on the rest of the country through his like immense ability to do so as a Supreme Court justice, but to do a troll move, not once but twice, with January 6th Stop the Steal related flags, just shows the level of just like vinegar and insane aggrievement that they don't deserve to have given their privilege and power, but that they just feel the need to stick it to the neighbor because they don't like Trump. It's crazy.
I think the point of the flag now, though, is because of this timeline, it's quite clear that it was not, it had anything to do with the neighbor. It had to do with trying to support Donald Trump's coup. I mean, when you fly that in the first week of January, in the wake of the coup, this is not about the neighbors anymore. That's just the story that he made up, because we now know the timeline. It's impossible for that to have taken place. It's impossible for his story to be correct. Impossible.
Right.
And it's clearly some type of cover up that he's engaging in for the truth. And the truth is the flag was put out there to support Donald Trump's attempted coup. And you can say, well, he's got a First Amendment right, et cetera, to support, which I think is not exactly judicial temperament. But he doesn't have a right to sit on that court once there's a clear indication that he may not be impartial. And it's so obvious. And the guy lied to Congress. All right, we got to take a quick break. To have a word for our sponsor, and then we'll be talking to Heather Parton, Digby, who we have not spoken to since Donald Trump has been a convicted felon. I mean, it's easy to feel like Donald Trump's always been a convicted felon, because in many respects, the guy should have been convicted. I think, let me put it this way. The gaming boards understood why you stay at arm's length from this guy. But it's only been a week, really, since he's been a convicted felon. And we'll talk to Heather about that and more. Your practices may vary, but, most people, when they go to the bathroom, they shut the door. I mean, there's been times where I've had roommates where I didn't do that. But you don't want random passerbys to see you, whether, I don't know who might be. I mean, particularly, let's put it this way. I mean, if you're in let's say a public bathroom, you don't want the stalls open.
Absolutely.
Would you let people look in on you when you go online? Using the internet without ExpressVPN is like going to the bathroom and not closing the stall door. And that's why it doesn't matter where I am. I'm at home. I'm out on the street with my phone. I got my computer and I'm at a hotel or something. I'm always using ExpressVPN. I want to thank ExpressVPN for supporting the show and for this deal. You visit expressvpn.com/majority and you can get extra 3 months free of their service. The thing I love about a VPN is all the security that's associated with it. Also, the fact that I can, if I needed to, pretend that I was in a different region to, let's say, theoretically unlock maybe a streaming service that may exist in a different place than in the United States. That's it's a great time for a VPN. But the thing that I like about it, because I'm not necessarily the most adept technically, super easy to work. I can download an app. I can put it on my phone. I can download an app. I can put it on my smart TV. I can do it on my computer. And even with a little bit of a tutorial, it does not that hard. You can put it on your router. And then when it's on one of those devices, all it is, you're talking about one touch of a button. ExpressVPN creates a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet, so your online activity cannot be seen by anyone. It is as easy as closing the bathroom door. Like I say, fire up the app, you click one button. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by The Verge and TechRadar, works on phones, laptops, and like I say, even routers. So everybody who shares your Wi-Fi can be protected. Secure your online activity by visiting expressvpn.com/majority today. That's expressvpn.com/majority. You can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/majority. Also, before we get to Heather and take a break, I just want to remind people I'm going on a cruise in December. God, it seems like December is
That's
so
a real
far
thing.
away. It's a real thing. And it seems like December is so far off. I mean, God knows what
Who will be president?
who will be president. It's going to be a big deal. I mean, you know, and what will have happened if Trump lost or what? I mean, but if you want to get in on this cruise, the Nation Cruise, you got to do it now. You can head over to nationcruise.com/MR. It's a 7-day cruise. It goes to the Cayman Islands, where if Trump wins, I'll be depositing millions of dollars as I, try and relocate and head to a secure location. Also, Jamaica and Cozumel, I think, in Mexico, but also, great food on the cruise. And every day there are talks from writers. I'll probably interview a couple of people. Check it out. nationcruise.com/MR. All right, quick break. And we'll be talking to Heather Parton. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. They have been resolved, ladies and gentlemen. It is always a pleasure to welcome back to the program possibly a longest running guest that we've ever had. I don't know. There's a lot of competition because I'm now getting very, very long in the tooth. But ladies and gentlemen, Heather Parton or Digby. Hi, Heather. How are you?
Hi, Sam. I'm fine. How are you guys?
Hanging
Doing
in
well.
there.
What is long in the tooth like? What does that originate from? I just had
Your
that
teeth
thought.
your teeth actually grow when you get older. And that's why you see
Really?
old. Yeah, you'll see really old women or men. Some of these guys at the D-Day thing yesterday. Your teeth actually. I know. I looked it up once because I was
Do
wondering
they actually grow, or is it that your gums recede?
I think they actually grow.
No, I think it's your
It's just
gums.
it exposes more of the tooth. Could be.
I think the gums recede.
Well, your
and-
In any
nose and your
case-
ears grow, right? When you get older. I knew that was the case. So maybe that's maybe that's the
I don't know, but something happens there with your teeth
all
that they
right.
look really long and witchy, right? I mean, think about the traditional look of a witch. It was that kind of long snaggletooth thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking
right.
forward. Yeah, I
There
think
was
it's-
some like anti-Semitism, I think, mixed in with the way witches
that
were
could actually,
portrayed.
for
Yeah.
sure. No
Bit of a
doubt about
mix.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
we should keep talking about this the whole hour, right?
Yeah, let's do it. That's fun. Yeah, I like it.
All right. So, Heather, with that said, long in the tooth refers to horses. Somebody's saying it's actually, I think, a recession of your gums, but nevertheless, but maybe it does in the horse thing. We have not spoken since Donald Trump has become a convicted felon, and relevant for, I think some of the obvious reasons. It seems to be having, and we haven't seen really many polls come out since then, but there's a New York Times poll that was done a couple of months ago. Maybe it was a month ago, where it showed Donald Trump with a lead. Now, there was criticism of that poll, if I remember correctly, because it assumed that turnout in 2024 is actually going to be greater than turnout in 2020. Now, it may be greater in terms of like, we have a bigger population on some level, although maybe we don't since COVID, frankly, in some respects. But it seems unlikely that the various cohorts, as opposed to sort of like the natural sort of like growing of the electorate, that there would be that many more people coming out. And that criticism was acknowledged by the Times. But they found a slight shift in the wake of, out of these 2,000 people they recontacted, out of that group towards Joe Biden, away from Donald Trump, because of all things, they apparently decide their president shouldn't be a convicted felon.
Well, yeah, and I think what's really significant about that is the numbers were, infinitesimal, really. It just looked like it was a slight shift within the margin of error. So nothing dramatic. But what was dramatic about it was where the shift took place. One of the, I hate getting into too much detail about this polling because, we really, it's a jump ball at this point and nobody really knows. But one of the characteristics of the polling that we're seeing across the board is that Trump is weak. I shouldn't say Trump is weak. Biden is showing weakness among people who didn't vote in the last 3 elections. And among those people are some of the Black population, some of the Hispanic population, and younger people. Now, younger people you have to discard because younger people may not have been old enough to vote in the last election, and people tend to vote more often as they get older. So a lot of those people who didn't vote in the last election may very well vote in this one. So let's just set that aside. But among the other 2 groups, this is actually pretty significant that among the Black and Hispanic population that is, more Trump positive, they are people who haven't tended to vote in the past. So that's one thing. What happened after the conviction was that they polled people and it was massively different among that group. Among the 20% that were Trump leaners, or among those who were Trump leaners, among that population, 20% of them moved over to Biden. Now that adds up to maybe a 1 percentage point difference, but that's a very big part of what's going on with how they're trying to, predict the electorate this time. This is a very, very important part of this. And one of the things that's happened is that Biden has hung on to the percentage of white voters of all class differentiation, I guess, best way I can think of to put it. He's hung on to those people from 2020. It's this other group of younger Black and Hispanic voters that they have to work very hard to try and get those people at least enthusiastic enough to come out and vote. And that's a group that I would suggest is probably most likely, once they start paying attention, among those who want to vote that are not going to be enthusiastic about Trump. And this poll is the first time that's showing that, with the first time that's showing that when they actually pay attention, see something, they say, nah, I'm not going to vote for him. And it's especially interesting to me because Trump is banking on this really sick and pathetic idea that being a convicted felon is really going to appeal to Black voters because how they about them, right? I mean, it's a sick kind of twisted sort of strategy that he's got there that, but they'll relate to me, the white billionaire Republican, because he got convicted. And I don't think this polling, this very early polling, is showing for the first time that's not going to work. It's an absurd concept. So
it's offensive.
It's incredibly offensive. But who is that for? I mean, who is that for? It's every time these people. I mean, because let's be clear, and I just want to remind people of this. I think most people know this. There is a party that is really built around, ID, the way that people identify, and they're homogenous in this respect. And it is identity politics is completely and completely intertwined with the existence of this party, and that party is the Republican Party. Like 90% of its voters are white people. Maybe that's a little bit low. It may actually be a little bit higher than that. And when they talk about Black people, brown people, and we should say Democrats lose the white vote fairly consistently because they attract not just white people but brown people and Black people and Asian people and just immigrants. I mean, just a much wider range of people. I mean, this is indisputable. This is just the fact. When the Republican Party talks about they're appealing to Black people, it's usually in a way that is just to appeal to white people who want to think that they're not putting off Black people in some way. I mean, Isn't that always the strategy?
Yes. And well, you could see it you guys are there in New York. So, you saw this with the, that rally that he held in the Bronx, right? I mean, this was absurd and it was actually laughable, and New Yorkers who were not, Trumpers were laughing at the whole concept. But, the fact is that in the Bronx, there's, quite a few people who voted for Trump. I mean, it's a big, big population there. So, of course, you can bring in a few thousand people to a rally. You could do it in my neighborhood, even though it was like 92% for Biden. Right. So, there's 8% of people you could probably get. But the idea, what he did there by sort of pretending like the crowd was diverse and that there were all these Black people from the Bronx. He brought in a couple of rappers, two of whom had, were under indictment for some kind of crimes. That again, that's part of it. He wanted to say, hey, look,
You're like me. We look at me so
the
similar.
criminals love me. They all love me. The criminals love me. But the whole idea was there to show to suburban white people that are kind of queasy about all this racism thing that, oh, don't worry, the black people love him too. So you don't have to be concerned.
That is, I think, exactly what it is. It's like, they're going to say that we're racist, but if we were racist, would we have rappers on the stage? I don't think so. It's like one of those messages. And it's interesting about the rallies. I don't want to get sidetracked by this, but it is very difficult to assess a candidate's popularity based upon, a single day or in terms of like turnout, right? I remember being in Manchester in 2008 for the primaries and convinced like, oh my God, Ron Paul is going to, I don't know if he's going to win this New Hampshire primary in the Republican primary, but I was like, I'd be surprised if he doesn't come in second or third, because everywhere you went, there were Ron Paul signed holders. And, occasionally you see one from Mitt Romney and one like around here and there. And it turned out that the difference is that everybody who voted for Ron Paul also held a sign. And so I saw a lot of people, but they did not represent. They didn't represent 10 voters or 100 voters or 1,000 voters. Each person represented exactly one voter. And all those people who held the sign voted for him, but no more. And, I think he came in 6 or 7. I don't remember what it was, but it taught me a very valuable lesson about, sort of trying to assess because that measures the depth of support, but not necessarily the breadth of support. But I will say this, is that all the reports I've been seeing from reporters who followed Trump in 2020 or 2016 are saying there is a massive drop-off of people. Now, I don't know what that means, really, at the end of the day. I just don't know what you can tell about that. But, Trump relied on some very, very intense voters. And if they're not intense about him, they may go and pull the lever against Joe Biden, but it's a different electorate this time around.
Well, I think that's true. And it's one of the things that the pollsters are starting to look at. You can even see, the god of all polling is the New York Times Siena poll, apparently. And anytime they, have a hiccup, the entire journalistic community, goes on high alert. But even there, which has been pretty kind of, predicting a, pretty grim prediction for Joe Biden up to now, is starting to make that shift. And it's not because of any bias. It's because they're starting to look at likely voters. That's what happens as you get closer to the election. And likely voters, that's a very, that's more art than science. But it's a little mystifying how they come up with it in these days of weird polling techniques, because they have to do a lot more modeling than actually talking to people, because people don't answer their phone and blah, blah, blah. We know all about that. But what they're starting to look at is what the likely voter model is going to be. And so you're seeing that in some of the coverage and what some of these pollsters are talking about. And it's very interesting to me because, again, like I said, it's more art than science. And from my observation, what I see about this election is that a lot of people are seeing it. First of all, they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to think about it because it's depressing. Just, both sides are just, nothing new here, nothing inspiring, nothing. Even on the Republican side, there's a lot of that. Of course, there's the hardcore MAGAs, but I mean, just among, normie Republicans who don't necessarily live their lives around politics. But they're seeing this as a rerun. It's a rerun of the last election. It's not very interesting. It's kind of dull and kind of depressing. So how that affects turnout, it seems to me, is going to be very much a part of the likely voter model that they're trying to put together. And you're just starting to see that. And one of the things that I mentioned this earlier that's very interesting is that Biden And the Democrats in general, not just Biden, just do much, much better among people who've been voting for the last 3 or 4 elections. People who have voted before, and that's including all the way up to the special elections of this year, Biden is actually quite a bit ahead among those people. It's only when you add in the new mix of people who haven't voted in the past, which, like I said, includes some younger voters who may very well this year, and they have their own issues and their own cares, and that certainly should be a concern for Biden. But if you just look at the voters who've been voting, who've been engaged in politics, and who are the kind of people who just vote, right? Like me.
High propensity voters is really what
Exactly.
it is. And
Exactly.
And we've seen this. That's why Democrats keep winning all these special elections. That's why that's basically it. I mean, you see that in the context of a special election. The most obvious person who's going to come and vote in a special election is a high propensity voter, someone who has a high propensity to vote. And I'm going to be voting in the one where the least amount of people end up voting because I vote. Whenever there's a vote, I'm on top of it. And it's also, it's not 1-to-1, but you can also, there is a very, very strong correlation to follow the news, don't follow the news in terms of your high propensity voting. And that's all reflected in all these pollings that you're talking about and the way that the Times revisited this. And so it's a very different type of election, I think, than we've ever seen, really, because generally Democrats want as many people to vote as possible, because broadly speaking, Democratic, at least aspirational, policy and, actual real policy when it actually happens, favors just a wider amount of people. Why that, and I think but there's all these headwinds, like Joe Biden being, not necessarily on top of his game, at least from the outside, I mean, who knows? Frankly, that's not a huge issue for me because I'm more concerned with what are they doing at the FTC? What are they doing at the Labor Department? What are they doing in Congress? All I need is him to sign a bill or to pick a Supreme Court justice. And, it's not like he's got president's got them all in his mind. Donald Trump is not a particularly good at anything other than I'll take that list from Heritage and yes, I'll appoint these people to Supreme Court.
Whatever you want.
But there's all these headwinds. And one of them, though, but here's another question. From a campaign perspective, let's watch Joe Biden with ABC's David Muir. Biden is, this took place on yesterday. So in Europe, I guess, where Biden is for the, the D-Day.
The D-Day anniversary. Yeah.
And David Muir asked him about Trump's guilty verdict. I want to talk about the way the Democrats are talking about this or not talking about this.
What do you think the American people should make of this? How important do you think this conviction should be in this race for president?
That's for the public to decide. But one thing for certain is stop undermining the rule of law. Stop undermining the institutions. That's what this whole effort is. All the MAGA Republicans are coming out saying this was a fix. This was a jury that this was a judge that set up to get Trump. There's no evidence of any of that. None. He's trying to undermine it. Look, he got a fair trial. The jury spoke like they speak in all cases, and it should be respected.
As we sit here in
I think that's a good answer from the president. He's basically, talking about institutions and, the rule of law. Maybe we're not applying that internationally in the same way that we should be coming out of the Biden administration, but strictly as a political matter, that seems the most appropriate way to, respond to it. But there should be other elected Democrats who are getting a little more aggressive about it. And it seems like they've been told, don't do that.
Well, I don't know if they've been told. I don't know where that's coming from, but there is apparently a big debate among Democrats, and I don't understand it at all. I mean, this is such a layup that I can't even believe anybody in politics would think it makes sense to not make the most out of the fact that the guy running for president has just been convicted of 34 felonies in a court of law. It makes zero sense. And I get what happened was, I mean, this is how the phenomenon sort of unfolded, was the minute, well, they started it in the last couple of weeks of the trial, when they had all those people come to the trial. They had Mike Johnson and Vivek Ramaswamy and the rest of them showing up with their red ties and sort of showing support and solidarity with Trump, and standing outside the courthouse and just absolutely flaying the judge and the system and the rigged, process and blah, blah, blah. They were setting that up. They were setting it up for a guilty verdict, at which point the entire Republican Party immediately had let out a collective primal scream. and I have to say that it kind of shocked me. I mean, I shouldn't have been shocked, but I kind of was just how unanimous this was. They're the ones who are being told from on high, no doubt about it, that this was a strategy. Come out screaming the minute that verdict comes in, that this was rigged, that it's just absolutely, undemocratic, that, the whole system is absolutely imploding, and we can't let this happen, and we're going to get revenge and blah, blah, blah. And it was an intimidation tactic. And the Democrats, as per usual, fell for it and started questioning themselves. Gee, should we say anything? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a bad idea to talk about Trump and his 34 felony convictions. I mean, that might upset somebody, so we better not do it. Absolutely ridiculous. Of course they should do it. And I think Democrats in Congress, there's a limited amount they can do in the House because they don't have the majority. But, I don't know. Is the Senate sleeping? What is happening?
The Senate is 100% sleeping. 100% sleeping.
Over there. I mean,
I just want to this is where I got this. I mean, Semaphore reported on last Friday, the day of the conviction. Well, I guess it was Thursday. The next day, guidance from the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee advised partisans to stress that, quote, our justice system worked as it's supposed to, shows Republican will bend the knee to former President Trump, but it included no specific attacks around the facts of the case. It does not look likely to be much of an issue going forward as well, especially if they're not getting the signal from the top of the ticket to drive the point home. I don't think Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries or leadership will use leadership capital to talk about Trump, one senior Democratic aide said. What? And now maybe they've changed course from this, but I've seen no evidence of it. The reason why you talk about this is because that's how you get the press to talk about it.
Of course.
And it's just like, this is so remedial. It's unbelievable.
I'm stunned by it too, Sam. I honestly could not believe, as I watched it unfold. I didn't read that Semaphore article, so I didn't get that this was actually a talking point or some kind of instruction coming from the Democratic Party. It's absolutely idiotic. I get it. It's unpleasant. This is not a fun fight at all to have, because you see people like, and I feel it too. I see Marco Rubio and, people who otherwise we might not have thought of as, in the Tommy Tuberville school of politics, just kind of ignorant and MAGA and ridiculous, but they're all like that now. So you just have to accept that and recognize that it's going to be mano a mano, hand-to-hand combat over through the next few months until the election. And that means, you can't just sit back and go, well, we don't really want to talk about that. We don't really think that's important. They're talking about it, for God's sakes. And people are listening to what they're saying. And if the Democrats aren't actually, countering with anything, it just, this is why
leaves a vacuum. But we've talked about this with Democrats all the time. But in this case, I didn't read that Semaphore article either, Sam, but that quote about how they need direction from the top of the ticket seems exactly right, because we covered Biden's speech a week ago today, where he came out after the Trump guilty verdict to talk about the Israeli ceasefire proposal that Israel's not agreeing to, and like tried to look in control and presidential. And he had this pre-planned moment clearly when he's walking out, and the reporter asks him about it, and he turns around and makes a memeable face for all the kids on the internet. And it just was like, why did you choose to, one, hold this press conference now? Because the ceasefire hasn't gone through. So it was like a deliberate way to be presidential in the wake of this conviction and look presidential. But two, then not address it at all. It seems like that's really, we're back 30 years ago to a mode of politics where it's about Biden thinks the value of looking presidential is way more valuable than doing politics. And that is just not the political reality that we live in anymore.
No, and it's also, look, all of this is about attention, right? I mean, you just mentioned it earlier, Sam, that when they did this polling on which people, the presidential race in light of where you get your news, right?
Yes.
And this was people who are paying attention. I mean, Biden has those people hands down. People who read newspapers, watch cable TV, watch things like this show, people who are politically engaged and who actually keep up. No doubt about it. I mean, Biden wins those people. But the people, there are a whole lot of people who are not paying any attention. But somehow or another, they have an opinion. And they're getting an opinion because this kind of stuff just seeps in. It seeps into the culture. I mean, you guys know this.
It's osmosis. 100%.
It's osmosis. It happens in conversations around the water cooler. It happens when you're at dinner with your relatives. Somebody says something. It happens in just overhearing conversations. And it happens on social media in places where you least expect it. Somebody's on Facebook looking up their college roommate or something, and something comes up and you see it. And you don't necessarily consciously pay attention, but there it is. And so they're getting their opinions from somewhere. And the only way that you can penetrate that, and it's a vast number of people. That's what's shocking to me is how few people, people really dropped out of the news cycle.
People
you can
are
see
really tuned out. I mean, yes.
They are really tuned out.
And I can see it in, sort of our numbers in terms of like, the passerbys on YouTube and whatnot. But, here's a fact that people don't know, I would bet. I think it's going to surprise everyone. You can go look this up. The number of people who heard about Donald Trump's grab them by the P word versus the number of people who heard about Hillary Clinton's emails.
Yeah.
There was actually less people who heard about the grab them by the P word. And that is because no, I'm talking specifically during the campaign, though. I mean, the emails. I mean, because there was literally polling about this. This is not conjecture on my part, and the polling on this, and I think why that's the case, I suspect, is because Democrats step back and they're like, we don't have to do anything with this because this is so disgusting, and so no one's going to elect this guy president. But they don't realize that this stuff doesn't travel on its own, that we are in a very different, I don't know if we were ever in a different age than we are now, but we're in a different age where media, there's so much to compete for attention. The media constantly needs something new because that's what's going to get your most clicks. If it doesn't happen in the first 24 hours and there's nothing more to that story, and if Chuck Schumer doesn't come out on Monday, and then, Kamala Harris doesn't come out on Tuesday, there's nothing new on that story, then they just move on to the next thing. And that's why it seems like a year ago that he was a convicted felon, and he's not going out there and doing it. And what they do also is they will lard up the news cycle with other things. So Donald Trump is out on the campaign trail, and he's now moved the story past his conviction into the question of revenge. Yes. So now all we're talking about is retribution and revenge, and not the underlying, hey, wait a second, you got convicted. You're a convicted felon of an actual crime. Here he is with Dr. Phil, of all people.
The word revenge is a very strong word, but maybe we have revenge through success. But that's what I'd like to see. I want to see the country survive, because this country is not going to survive like this. And And really, the expression, I think it's the greatest theme ever in politics, maybe, because it's the biggest movement. We want to make America great again, and that's what we have to do. And I think you'll be very proud of the job we did.
The Pope has a book out that he's written, and he says, we are all brothers and sisters, and there must be no resentment among us. For any war to truly end, forgiveness is necessary. Otherwise, what will follow is not justice, but revenge. And that's true even in the cultural wars that we're fighting here. I think you have so much to do, you don't have time to get even. You only have time to get right.
Well, revenge does take time, I will say that.
It does.
And sometimes revenge can be justified, Phil. I have to be honest. Sometimes it can.
But is the country better or worse for them going after you?
I think the country is really worse for what they've done. And I think you see that when you look at the poll numbers, when you see that almost $400 million has poured in since this horrible decision was made. That was a few.
Okay, aside from like his lying about his fundraising numbers, he's also including all the money that he embezzled out of Truth Social into his legal fund. That's also part of the money. But here's my point is like what the strategy is from Trump's perspective. The topic is now about revenge and whether he's going to be good enough or not good enough to seek revenge. There's like, what's the revenge here? Like, how do you, like, I'm going to force them to also, lie on their business forms. Here, then Dr. Phil shows up on CNN saying, like, this is really about whether Donald Trump is a good man enough and can get by this. Watch this clip.
Is his inclination, because just today, he said, for example, that he would indict the January 6th committee members, presumptively the members of Congress who were on that committee investigating what happened on January 6th. Are you more or less convinced after sitting down with him that he actually would follow through on those kinds of pledges?
Well, I actually don't think he will. I think this is a situation that it's a process. This is something that I think he's had in his mind, that there's only one way to go, and that's to get even. And I think I've really made some headway with him that is not the way to go. I think it's a process. I think he'll turn this over and over in his mind, and totally. I don't think he will do that. And to the extent that I have any opportunity to lean into this with him, I am going to relentlessly try and get him to not do that and to get others to not do that. Look, we need to stop this. This is a time where America needs to come together, not be playing.
Okay. I mean,
well,
this is,
I'm convinced, sure.
But I mean, aside from the sort of like shocking sort of narcissism that Dr. Phil has, that's not surprising. But the amazing thing that's happening in the absence of something for like an Abby Phillips, let's say, to push back on, like, because there's a vacuum of people saying he got convicted of a crime that was, did Alvin Bragg bring these charges because the prosecutor is a political position and they want to bring charges that, make them seem like they're doing their job? More than likely, that's why every prosecutor prosecutes. They may, but they also don't bring cases they think they're going to lose. And this was a case where a jury found him guilty.
Right.
And this whole talk of like, will he or won't he seek revenge? Well, like, wait, how is this in any way equal? He's going to make up charges and try and imprison people because they sat on a congressional committee? That should be the question. And the Democrats are not forcing that question. And the media is certainly not going to do it because they're more interested in Dr. Phil. If you think, can you change him through therapy? I mean, it's crazy.
TV therapy. Well, I have a couple of points on this. The first is that, the revenge thing. I mean, this has been true. Trump has been, a vengeance is mine kind of guy ever since the 1980s. It's all documented. I've written about it probably a dozen times since Trump came down that escalator, because it's a very fascinating part of his personality, right? I mean, it is there, and he's always been that. But there's more to it than that.
And wanting like a Roy Cohn figure for his attorney general.
That's who he is. He's like a mob boss. You gotta show him who's boss here, and then they'll only respect you if you hurt them. That's always been his credo, and it's in his books. And he's given speeches. He gave a speech to Liberty University back in 2012, where he said, two bits of advice, kids. I mean, Liberty University, the religious right, Jerry Falwell University, right? He said, two things, kids. First, always get a prenup. Second, always get payback. And this is all the Christian kids are going, yay, we love Jesus. I mean, it was ridiculous. But so this has always been part of him, and nothing surprising in it. And, the idea that he's suddenly become so overwhelmed with anger over what's happened to him that he simply has no choice. It's ridiculous. He's always been this way. The second thing is, though, there's a strategy here, and this strategy is being pushed by the Republican Party. And that is, some of it has to do with Trump's court case that's before the Supreme Court right now. It's the immunity case. Remember, Judge Alito, in his questioning on that, brought this up. So what do we do if we have a bitter president who wants to go after his rival? Don't we have to stop this cycle of retribution? Don't we have to stop it? So this thing is percolating in their minds, this idea that they have no choice but to go after the Democrats, to do whatever it takes, because they have to stop this. They have to stop the Democrats from doing this horrible thing that they've been doing. And what that covers up for everybody is the fact that Donald Trump, and I don't know, he's got a dozen or more former and current associates, are all criminals. They're criminals. They're being convicted. They're under indictment. They're being convicted. Some of them.
One this week in Wisconsin with Chesbro and others.
I mean, they're pleading guilty all over the place. They're being, this is not, if this is a conspiracy, then it is the most, voluminous conspiracy in world history, that everywhere across America, you've got their tentacles out to get Trump's from the lowest to his highest associates. These people are committing crimes. And what this whole thing about revenge, and you're absolutely right, they managed to flip the script on this in order to cover up the fact that this is real. The Republican Party has become a criminal enterprise, and this is what's happening. And nobody, the press is kind of running around following them in whatever. And when the Supreme Court comes out with their case, and I will not be surprised under these circumstances to see. And Sonia Sotomayor made a comment the other day. She says, I sometimes go behind my office door and cry, and I'm sure it won't be the last time. And everybody kind of goes, "Oh, geez, oh my God, what's coming?"
Right.
That may be that they do this. That the Supreme Court is going to let Donald Trump off the hook on his federal criminal charges because of this idea, and they'll justify it, I think, by saying that, well, we can't have this cycle of retribution going on. We can't have it, and they'll sort of, well, we've taken the high road, Donald, and Trump sort of indicated this too in some of his comments, kind of going, well. And I think it was in the Time magazine interview. He said, well, if the Supreme Court says I've got immunity, then I guess there's nothing I can do to Biden. Otherwise, I'm afraid it's going to have to happen. He kind of said this.
Right.
We're going to have to do it. So, all this stuff is sort of circulating out there in the ether on the right. And the consequences are going to be severe if they actually do this, because it's a total assault on the rule of law, and with the Republicans basically being a criminal enterprise, immunity being conferred, et cetera, the Democrats obviously don't have what it takes to actually use that to their advantage.
It's just, they have what it takes to use it. It's just all they need is a mouth. It's just that it's just they're bad at politics sometimes. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
They've always been bad at this stuff, Sam. I mean, you and I have been talking about this for 20 years.
I know.
About this inability to kind of, to kind of define their opposition properly in terms of what's actually happening, and then use the system that exists in order to fight it. For whatever reason, they continue to kind of cling to it's as Emma said, they're clinging to some old version of politics that doesn't exist anymore.
But I also think there's something else that's going on, because you look at these. Bradley, do you have that graph from the New York Times that showed, like, in terms of like people following the case of that, whatever it was? I think it was about 1,900, 2,000 people, just to say for the sake of ease, 2,000 people that they had polled in that Ipsos poll, a month ago, and now they have, and now there's. How often do you pay attention to politics? No, keep going down, scroll down, the other one. There's another one about the case. Yeah, here it is. Approval of the verdict. Attention to the trial. Paid a lot or some attention, 71%. Paid a little or no attention, 28%. Now, that 28% also correlates with those people who don't pay attention to the news much and are low propensity voters and who swung to Biden. Those are the people that you need to reach. And if you're Hakeem Jeffries and you live in New York City, or if you're Nancy Pelosi and you live in San Francisco, you don't understand how people don't hear about these things. I'm just using as an example. Or you're in Washington, D.C., you don't understand how people don't hear about these things, because, every piece of media that you watch, from Morning Joe at the beginning and then Morning Joe later in the morning, is talking about it. And so what's going on? We got the wrong screen up there. We just lost Digby, became a graph. There. Wait.
Still see her. Okay,
she's on the call. It's just her video. Yeah, our video is not coming out. One second.
All right, we're going to work on that, but I think we can hear you, Heather. The notion, it's as if they don't understand what, regardless of what the polls say, they don't understand that the message is not going to just automatically get instilled in people, that you literally need to provide it to people. We can't hear Heather. People are saying they can't hear Heather. We got to fix this, guys. Nope.
I don't know what's going on. We have to go to a break and.
All right, we'll go to a break for a second. Sorry, folks. All right, we're back. Sorry, folks. We had a little technical difficulty. Heather is back. You were saying?
I don't remember.
Well, I mean, the idea is, like, the Democrats have a problem with doing this, and they need to. Repetition. Yeah, it's repetition, and it's also like you need to feed the media beast. And if you decide you're not going to talk, somebody else is going to feed it. Like nature abhors a vacuum, and the media abhors a vacuum even more. And they will fill it with whoever is providing them content. I mean, this is a thing that like Steve Bannon like understood back in 2016, with the we're gonna partner with the New York Times with Clinton Cash. Like they need content, and if I'm the first person there to give it to them, and like we experienced that in this show. I mean, if people send us a link to content, we're gonna look at it, or it's much more likely that that's going to have an opportunity for us to use it. I mean, we run across stuff, we pull stuff, but if people are pushing stuff on it, that's, everybody in media understands that. That's why political reporters get 1,000, press releases. I mean, this is basic stuff.
It's very basic. And it's also, as I was saying earlier, I don't know if people heard this, was the idea of repetition. You have to, bless you. You have to repeat things over and over again in order to penetrate this. There's a cacophony of news and noise and whatever good that's out there. And you have to repeat these things over and over again. And the idea, I mean, this going back to our original, discussion here, when the verdict happened and there suddenly became this big discussion of whether or not it was wise to call Donald Trump a convicted felon. Okay, so they all said, okay, well, we'll call him a convicted felon. It's not enough to do that on a day, right? And just say, well, he's a convicted felon now. Isn't that terrible? You have to call him a convicted felon over and over and over again, because that's how you penetrate. And this is, and people, well, they don't really know what you mean by convicted felon. I'm going, yes, they do. Americans do understand the term convicted felon. You don't need to elaborate. You don't need to do anything. Just call him that. It's the truth. And they get very upset by it, as you're seeing on certain news programs where Republicans they're getting angry about it. They're going, how you called him a convicted felon? Why do you keep doing that? Well, and all they have to do is say it's the truth. He is a convicted felon. So that it's a fact. We're just going with that. You just say it over and over again. Look at Donald Trump. No obstruction, no collusion. I mean, this is how he does it. And
Crooked Hillary. I mean, he just, he's giving you the clues on how he talks to his people by repeating these things over and over again. I mean, this stuff is so
propaganda 101.
Rudimentary. Yes, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating because these people are supposed to be professionals, and
well, I just heard the other day, I heard Nancy Pelosi, and I don't know who is the other one. Maybe it was one of her former deputies, I can't remember, going on and on about kitchen table issues again. And, some other, and it's like, but I get it. The economy is important, big issue. Everybody always says the economy is the most important issue to them. And yes, you have to address it. But this idea that it's the only thing you can talk about, and it's all about, we feel compassion for the people who are suffering and blah, blah, blah. This is like, how many elections are we going to, this is all you ever say. In other words, this is it. This is the only thing you ever have to say. There's no adjusting for current circumstances in their minds. It's that it's written in stone. Maybe it's the ossified sort of thinking of people.
I think so. Although
even the young ones are saying the same stuff. So, what can you do?
Heather wanted to talk a little bit more about a couple other things, but we covered some good ground. We'll have more opportunity to talk in the coming months. One thing that it's sort of fascinating to me is that in August, we're going to see the Democratic National Convention. The Republican one is in July. We're going to have a debate in 20 days. The first debate is in 20 days between Biden and Trump.
It's important too. This debate is going to be really
decisive. Very important. I think this is where Biden is hoping to sort of like reintroduce Donald Trump to the country. Although, it's a great time to introduce him the day he gets convicted of a felony.
Right.
But I should also say,
oh, go ahead, Sam.
The interesting thing is that sometime between this first debate and the Democratic National Convention, Joe Biden will be nominated the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party. It will not happen at the Democratic National Convention. We don't know the date yet. It's going to be virtual. It seems the strategy that the Biden sort of campaign has is, let's be invisible on some level. Like, let's just make this all about Donald Trump, which makes the stuff about not having at least surrogates and other people come out and say convicted felon that much more ridiculous.
Exactly. And they've got a lot of them who could do it. I mean, you get Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer and J.D. Pritzker and, Josh Shapiro. I mean, these are all big name, they're second tier. We're going to hear a lot more about them in the next couple of years. Kamala Harris, the rest, and there's a lot of people who can be out there making this case and doing it effectively. And I keep waiting, I've been sitting here going, well, come on, they're gonna, really launch here any minute. It's getting late, guys. Gotta get going now. Getting late, and I'm getting a little bit, anxious here. I'm having some bad dreams at this point. I'll be honest.
I don't think I'm going to have more than 2.5 hours of contiguous sleep for months. So
until November, and then maybe, I don't know, I may never sleep again. I don't know, but yeah, I'm getting anxious. I'm getting a little anxious.
Well, Heather, we will check in and see how your sleep is going, and over the next month. Always a pleasure. And of course, we will put links to your work at Salon and at the Uber blog, Hullabaloo.
Okay. Thanks for having me. You guys have a great weekend.
You too, Heather.
Bye-bye. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We're supposed to have other guests on for the second half of the show today. There's a lot of very strange stuff going on with this guy from the Birds Aren't Real. We had him on a couple
That's
years ago.
a real thing.
Yeah, we had him on a couple of years ago. Then it seemed like he passed away.
It seems
recently.
like he passed away.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that's what it seems like he's passed away. But maybe he'll be back next week. There's a strange thing going on with these Birds Aren't Real guys, and we'll talk about it next week. But just want you to know that's we're on top of that, and we'll get to them soon. Have we rescheduled them yet, Bradley?
Yeah, they're good for next week, though.
Next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh gosh, will they be embalmed or?
I don't know.
We'll see.
Folks, again, your support makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. And don't forget Just Coffee. JustCoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee and hot chocolate. Buy the Majority Report blend. Use the coupon code Majority, get 10% off. Emma, ESVN. God, I imagine there's going to be a lot of talk about that amazing game last night.
There
where
will
the Mavs
be on
came
Monday.
out and they were all like, we're going to play really good defense. And then all of a sudden, the first quarter, my understanding is there was a record set last night for the largest lead going into the second quarter of any championship basketball game in the history of championship basketball games.
It looked like there was a opportunity for the Mavs to come back in like the third quarter, but then they slammed the door. That was a historic performance by Porzingis for sure.
Celtics do like to play with their food, but I am going with them because Jaylen Brown wore a Free Palestine bracelet in January. So.
He did. So there. I mean, just a quick update.
And Miriam Adelson owns the Mavs.
Miriam Adelson owns the Dallas Mavericks, right? So that is a big knock.
And Mark Cuban, the Libertarian, is like a assistant owner now. I don't know what his
he's now like
position
in management, but so it's tough for me because I hate Kristaps Porzingis for obvious reasons. And
what's the obvious reasons?
I mean, he forced his way out of the Knicks.
Isn't there's more severe personal issues off the court with him, aren't there?
Yeah, I will
wanna speak
say,
on that.
I will say off camera, I knew somebody that knew him, and yeah, I mean, he was accused of rape and other things, but I don't think he's the best person. But honestly, I'm like almost finding myself like maybe I just have to root for the Celtics because of the whole Miriam Adelson, Trump, I will give you a lot of money if you annex the West Bank thing. And
we have more. We have an update on that, incidentally.
Oh. Interesting. All right. So anyway, we previewed the NBA championship. We also, the NHL Stanley Cup final, we previewed. And then we talked about that Caitlin Clark stuff, which we dove into pretty deep on ESPN, but we'll be back on Monday to give updates on all those series, youtube.com/ESPN show.
Matt.
Yeah, Left Reckoning, Mike Preisner talking about our favorite, Tulsi Gabbard. Mike read Tulsi's new book, which he's been working on for like 8 years through like 3 different political identities and like several name changes. I think it's called like For Love of Country now. There are 2 chapters on how trans people are attacking the country, and
just 2 chapters on how trans people are attacking the country.
I think there might be some sprinkles in some other chapters too, but yeah, she did devote 2 chapters of a book that I wanted to read, but it wasn't on my file sharing. I don't know. I think it's like 200 pages. I need to look that up though. 200
pages, and there's 2 chapters in the safety and the future of America. 2 chapters on trans people. It is
something else.
I mean, it's back to her roots. Like she comes from a very homophobic background. It's sort of what I said to Mike is like it's kind of like how Kendrick Lamar had been sitting on how much he hated Drake for so long because of sort of reasons to go along, and now he's able to fully admit how much he hates it, and that's how Tulsi Gabbard I think feels about gay people. But yeah, For Love of Country is I'm trying to look at how much pages it is here. It's a full. I guess that detail is not important enough for Google Books. But yeah, we get into that Mike Preisner, patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
I never relate to you more than when you shoehorn your latest obsession into every other element of your interests, like the Kendrick Drake beef is like X, which you've been doing for 4 weeks at this point. I do that with Real Housewives, with sports.
I've probably been doing that since like March when Like That came out, and we had Fantano on my politics podcast.
No, it's just comforting to know that we share a personality disorder. So.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we got to take a quick break, head into the fun half. See you there. 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's
Stop talking for a second. Now let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is it?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm going to go throw up.
Libertarians. They're so stupid, though. Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him!
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge met.
I'm positively quivering.
I believe 96, I want to say. 857-210-35. 501. 1/2. 3 8s.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400. $1,900.
6, 5, 4, $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Who
call it satire. Sam goes, it's satire.
On top of it all,
Yeah.
my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye.
And back.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. It is Sam Seder and Emma Vigeland on the fun half of the program. And let me go into the IMs for a moment. Jennifer from St. Louis, your gums recede. It's atrocious. Yes, long in the tooth. I only listen to the show, but if Biden people are concerned about him looking presidential, they need to do something to make him sound less exhausted. And Trump voice low energy during these interviews. Sounds like he's on the verge of death, just judging by his voice. It's kind of alarming. I mean, yeah. But I don't know what they can do. Frankly.
Right.
Jay Tingle, long in the tooth actually refers to horse trading. Looking at the horse's teeth is a bit like kicking the tires at a used car lot. However, the teeth reveal a nag to be an astute buyer.
Same thing as don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
Ah.
The horse economy. Horse flesh was a big part of civilization for a good chunk of
long time. Miller time. Sam is worried about his nose growing. Us Semitic people already have big noses as is. If the Democrats lose in November, they'll be remembered in history as the weak SPD, Weimar Germany, that failed to stop the rise of Hitler.
I think so. I mean, paved the way for it, including like having people leave the bureaucracy because of objection to, I think, already like fascist policy in the colonies we're supporting. Yeah, it fits entirely.
Star Fox, happy Friday, MR crew. Was wondering if the Discord could get a birthday shofar for our comrade Asa Plurk today. Can't wait to listen back and hear how you pronounce that, Sam. Left is best. Asa Plurk, happy birthday. All right. Let's do this. This is funny. Here, you may have seen this tweet. This is number 8 on our sound sheet. Dinesh D'Souza, remember him? Wonder why he's been so quiet as of late. Will you pop this up? Yeah. Here's Dinesh D'Souza trying to cover up for Donald Trump. He has a document, which he calls this 1776 document, was produced entirely by convicted felons. All of these men were criminals who faced the death penalty from a regime that insisted no one was above the law. Trump is in such good company. Matt, didn't you take history in the university?
I've taken a history class before, yeah.
But what does that document look like to you? Can you put that back up on the screen? Is that the...
What's that in big font up there?
We the people. What document does that start with? Is that the Declaration of Independence? No. Isn't that the Constitution?
Yes.
Matt, you're a historian of sorts. When was the Constitution written?
I believe it was 1783. I'm just a guess. I don't know. It wasn't 1776.
No, it was not in 1776. I think it was in 83, or maybe it might have been even 86 it was ratified. I'm not quite sure. But it was in 1776. We should also say that the people who signed that Constitution were
1789.
1789. So. Okay, yeah, so I was off by 3 years, but that was he was off by 13. And we should say that, like, I don't think at that point the country was considered, these people were considered criminals, but they also were not criminals because they hadn't violated U.S. law.
I'm trying to find out, when the term felony, I mean, it originated in English common law, but when it actually became letter of the law here in the United States, it seems like a stretch to call all of the signatories of the U.S. Constitution felons.
But so what if we're felons to the king? Who cares?
That's my point. We didn't subscribe to the king. There was a document actually written in 1776, which was the Declaration of Independence, at which time they were no longer subject to the king's laws, which incidentally were also not the justice system that we've had for 200 years. If Dinesh D'Souza is basically saying that we need to overthrow this entire government, then I don't know why he's supporting a guy who's running for president. That won't work. I guess maybe he just wants him to be dictator. Now,
we have a precedent for people who want to do that to the Constitution, which is the Confederacy.
I will say this. There is a reason why Dinesh D'Souza is wrong about this. It's because he's wrong about a lot of things. Can you pop up I think NPR wrote about this. The publisher of 2,000 Mules, which is Dinesh D'Souza's 2020 election film about the 2020 election, and his book, has issued an apology and said it would halt distribution of the film and remove both the film and the book from its platforms. Salem Media Group apologized, and also apologized specifically to Mark Andrews, a voter from Georgia who was depicted in 2,000 Mules as having voted illegally like 1,000 times. Apparently, according to the court filing, Salem settled the lawsuit brought by Andrews for an undisclosed significant amount. And it turns out that Dinesh D'Souza, his piece was finally discredited, and hopefully it was it cost him dearly, but couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
What do all of the signatories of the Constitution, Donald Trump and Dinesh D'Souza, have in common? Apparently, they're all convicted felons.
That's true.
Dinesh is in good company here. He was convicted of a felony a few years ago under election law, campaign finance law. So, he was pardoned by Trump, but yeah.
All right, let's go back to Trump. Last week we reported on this. Put up that tweet about Adelson.
Oh no, not this one. The first one. There it is.
All right, here we go.
This is from Haaretz. Sheldon
on June
Adelson.
3rd. So that was this Monday.
Monday.
Yeah.
It's reported that that Trump is desperate for her cash. And her ask is, wants you to allow Israel to annex the West Bank. Then on, was it June 4th? What do we see? June 4th or 5th?
Might have been even earlier than that.
Right after that interview, you put, okay, yeah, here it is. Then all of a sudden, she is now providing a massive super PAC for Donald Trump. Just a reminder, back in 2016, when her husband, Sheldon Adelson, now deceased, funded Donald Trump, their ask, get out of the Iran nuke deal, move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And guess what? They got both those. Okay, that article is from May 30th. All right, so there it is. We know what she promised. And just days after that, so we're like 5 or 6 days out from her funding that thing. Here's Donald Trump on Sean Hannity. For anybody who thought, and I think we thought that maybe during the debates he would try and get to the left of Joe Biden on Israel, it looks like it's far more lucrative for him to not do that. Here he is on Sean Hannity last night. This is clip number 6.
So, number one, they have to finish the job. Israel has to finish that job. They have to finish it quickly, strongly, and they have to get back to life again because it's taking too long. They have to finish the job.
You're saying go in, win, and finish.
You got to win. Got to win. The attack on October 7th, and it's getting more and more demeaned. They're demeaning it. I have people now telling me they don't think the attack ever happened. And take a look. You watch the news reports.
I have the
where
50
people
minutes
that are
of video.
protesting. Sure,
Hold
I know
on.
you
Will you
do, so
pause
do I,
it
but
for a
here's the
second?
thing.
Does Donald Trump really have people coming up to him and going like, I don't believe the attack ever happened? Like, first off, who's coming up to Donald Trump? Like, who is Donald Trump having conversations with?
Nick Fuentes?
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Holocaust
Like,
deniers.
maybe some of his neo-Nazi buddies are saying, like, I don't even think I don't think the Holocaust happened. I don't think the attack on October 7th happened. I mean, it's possible.
Right.
But like,
They're saying, here we go again.
it would have been so fun for Sean Hannity just to mistakenly go like, really? Like who? Who's
Cytosaurus?
Who would say that to you? We're just
Right.
different people. Leftists, Democrats. All right, go back.
The news reports.
I have the
where
50
people
minutes
that are
of video.
protesting. Sure, I know you do, and so do I. But here's the thing: you watch these people on television, and then just like you have Holocaust deniers, also they say the Holocaust never took. It's the exact same people. They're saying
Fuentes.
it never happened. AOC +3. Israel was the most powerful lobby in the country 15 years ago. Today, between Tlaib and AOC and all of these people, what they're doing, Israel, they don't have the backing that they once had.
You'll give it to them.
Yeah, I'm good. But they don't have the backing. Even Schumer has become like a Palestinian. Chuck Schumer, Jewish, always strong for Israel. He's become like a Palestinian.
Called for elections in the middle of a war.
Yeah, it's a very bad thing. It's a very sad thing, and it's a very dangerous thing. But if you look, so many people, I watch on your show where they're going and interviewing these people that are protesting just recently at Columbia and the different places. They say, we don't believe October 7th ever happened. And they may believe that, they may actually believe that, but they have to get the job done. They have to get in there and they have to get it done.
I mean, first off, like all this stuff is so jumbled in his head. He's just clearly dumping. He's literally repeating what Miriam Adelson must have told him when she said about the money. And like, that's what he's doing. I mean, it's fascinating because you have all these people who get on television trying to appeal to Donald Trump, whether it's like Marjorie Taylor Greene or whatnot, and signal like, pick me, pick me. And he's going around and he's gotten paid now with Adelson's money. And he's going around repeating all this stuff. I mean, he hasn't talked like this in months. I don't know. This has been going on for 8 months. And now he's talking about this stuff.
He was on Adelson's, I forget the name of the right-wing Israeli publication that his, billions that funds, right? I mean, this is his widow. For people that don't know, Sheldon Adelson was one of the biggest Republican donors. He died recently, and his number one pet project in life is his support for Israel. So his widow is continuing that legacy. But he was
number 2
with
was
them.
to destroy unions, incidentally, because he was
there you
Vegas,
go.
hotelier, but...
Right. And so his wife is, continuing his legacy by supporting a genocide. And Trump was on there, and it was a weirdly cut, edited interview, but he was saying Israel needs to finish the job. But a few months ago, he also was saying that the optics of how Gaza looks is really bad for Israel. And that's what he was saying on that interview with that publication. It didn't get a ton of coverage. But the point is that now he's abandoned that altogether because he's even more desperate for money than he was the first time he ran, much more so because he views this as existential. people forget when he ran for the first time, if you read that book, Devil's Bargain, Trump never planned on winning the primary. Like, Trump never planned on winning the election. He wanted to make money. He wanted to get his name out there. Everything's about a branding exercise. The same quote that when he's talking about how Gaza looks for Israel because of all the destruction, it looks so bad. He has one mode. He's a savant almost at it, which is like public relations, but he's kind of a lunatic at the same time, so he's lost control of it. But that's all he sees the world as. And so he can be moved and swayed with the money because he now feels like, if I don't win, I'm going to jail.
But I think it was always a little bit wishful, the idea that he would run to Biden's left on this. And I don't think he ever showed any significant willingness to do that. Like, he was quoted in front of like a Zionist donor saying, we're going to set the Palestine movement back 25 years. Like that one thing at the UFC thing where he's like, we're going to wrap it up. Like that was pretty non-committal, but everyone's grasping at anything.
Well,
we said that at the time.
I think it's not a question of hopeful. I mean, I think it's like a notion of just like, he will say anything that he finds to be in his best interest. And until it became clear that there was someone who was going to offer him, could be hundreds of millions of dollars in an outside expenditures, in terms of like, that became his best interest at that point. Because there was a while he's going like, this would have never happened if I was there. And, there were times where he was running. Look, the Republicans ran against the Democrats back in like 2016 or 2014 on the Democrats cutting Medicare during the implementation of the ACA, which was cutting of Medicare Advantage, just cutting down the reimbursement rates because Medicare Advantage was ripping off the government. Yeah. And the nakedness in which they'll do this is easy. So I think it was unlikely. I think there was some people who were like, this is going to prove that he is but the fact is, no, he would be just as bad and now worse.
And I think it's notable that he definitely noticed that it was splitting the base because he commented on that explicitly, but he hasn't really done anything to like really go in to that split.
Well, what we said at the time too was all he had to say is Biden's messing up, Biden's effing up, right? And that's kind of all he had to do at this point. But he's now made it. No, he's now made it more clear.
Because I don't know. I think he was always like, I'm still supporting Israel. I don't know that he ever let that hang out there as much as I don't know. I just never saw that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, one more Trump clip because this is good stuff. I mean, he's out there. I think he is worried about the conviction. I really do think that this is something they're concerned about because there's just simply not a world where the people who are more inclined to vote for him because he's been convicted, a convicted felon. Those people are already voting for him. There is just simply not a cohort of the American public that's like, I'm not voting for anybody who's not a convicted felon. That's just not, we don't have that cohort of people, not in any serious numbers. And so here he is, and this is so fun to watch how this was last weekend. We missed this clip. It's so fun to watch how these Fox and Friends, particularly the weekend people, because Will Cain did the same thing, how they are desperate to tee up the talking points that Donald Trump wants, and then how bad he is at some of this. They won't care, of course, because they're just authoritarians, and as long as he names checks them, they're fine. But Rachel Campos Duffy asks Donald Trump about his relationship with God. And this is how he responds.
What's your relationship with God like, and how do you pray? That's Sharon from Alabama.
Okay, so I think it's good. I do very well with the evangelicals. I love the evangelicals. And I have more people saying they pray for me. I can't even believe it. And they are so committed, and they're so believing.
Can we just sort of like try and like break down like he must either have some deep-seated, like, 'cause it's not like I can't tell a lie about this. He must have some like deep-seated psychological issue around this that he couldn't say, well, my relationship with God is personal, and I pray, I pray in a way that's unconventional. I mean, there's a million different lines for this. But instead, he says, essentially, I think I'm in good shape with God because I got so many people praying for me that I don't even have to do it myself. Everybody's knocking on God's door saying, Donald Trump is great. I mean, come on.
I think his level of narcissism doesn't allow for himself to think of another being that could in any way supersede his authority on the world.
Actually, that could be it.
I really just think he chooses not to consider it or think about it. And perhaps he thinks it makes him weak. There's not somebody who's more spiritually bereft than Donald Trump on this planet, or more material. I mean, the guy just wants to be rich and be the man, and that's basically it. So there's no way he even can confront that question, I think.
Counterpoint, this is exactly how I sound when my grandma asks me if I'm going to church.
Well, but we are spiritually bereft social democrats.
There's a lot of
socialists,
churches. You
so-
just can't, when you say, how's my relationship with me? Right? Like, no. People pray, I mean, to me, for me. Here, just go back to the beginning. This is amazing. This is an amazing turn.
What's your relationship with God like, and how do you pray? That's Sharon from Alabama.
Okay, so I think it's good. I do very well with the evangelicals. I love the evangelicals. And I have more people saying they pray for me. I can't even believe it. And they are so committed, and they're so believing. They say, sir, you're going to be okay. I pray for you every night. I mean, everybody, almost, I can't say everybody, but almost everybody that sees me, they say it. It's such a beautiful thing. You know what's a beautiful thing, too? When you look at all of this bad stuff going on, they have nothing to look up to. They have no God. They have no anything. They kill people, they beat people, they push people into subways. There's just nothing there. Religion is such a great thing. It keeps you, there's something to be good about. You want to be good.
What's your
you want to be a good person.
That guy does not believe in God.
No.
That guy does not believe in God, but the amazing thing is, it's as if he does too, because he's like, I can't lie about this, or God's going to strike me down, even though I don't believe in it. There's a weird dynamic here.
He's been asked he adorns his freaking penthouse like he's a king. He has the way kings felt closer to God. That's how Donald Trump views himself. But it's also just crazy because he's also so lazy. Because he's been asked a version of this question since 2016. I remember when it was the Fox folks asked him about his favorite Bible verse. He's like, I can't pick one.
I can't choose one.
He didn't do homework from 2016 to his third presidential run.
But it's also, I think, why people always wonder about him and Speaker Johnson's relationship, because Johnson is such a passionate Christian, and Trump is obviously extremely depraved in a number of ways that would seem problematic in that way. In a profile of Johnson, in a profile of Mike Johnson a while back, there was a phone conversation he had with Trump where he was like, I'm going to be talking to God about this and praying for you. And Trump literally, before hanging up, said, tell him I said hello.
Yeah, we're buddies.
Like, how hard would it be to say, like, yeah, I pray all the time and I think about what God wants me to do, but he knows he can't deliver. That's a line he can't deliver.
He also, I think
that's
he
what I'm
thinks it's
saying. That's why I
weird.
think there's some psychological problem, because he could just say, how do I pray? Well, I pray, in the way that most people pray. And it's a personal thing. I think my relationship with God is good. I know that I love God, and I hope that God loves me, and I think he does, because I try and do good in his eyes. I mean, come on.
Because that is I'm not trying to get too in the.
We're stablemates.
That would show subservience. Oh, God.
God's in the next cubicle, and he's got the bad one. I've actually got the corner office.
He thinks showing subservience or something like that to God and showing humility in the eyes of God is for pussies, too.
It's for y'all. It's for you guys.
Right.
Good for you to want to be good.
Couldn't be me.
Well, it is amazing too. It's like, it is the best way to get over people is if they believe in God, because they're always trying to do good things.
It's so funny how he's like, look at how much these people believe.
Because they believe in him. Because we've talked about this before. The evangelical base just uses the same emotional framework for which they relate to Jesus Christ and God to Trump.
It's sort of a reverent way for him to say, can you believe how big of suckers these guys
They're
are?
raw
Yes.
material.
Yeah.
Yes.
They pray for me and they really believe it's going to help me. And I'm like, I'm going to need some cash for that, too.
Yeah, that's a prayer's great and everything.
Just like
but
those
sign the
contractors really believed I was going to pay them their second payment after I gave them the deposit.
There's
Suckers.
nothing like the look in the eyes of a God-fearing contractor, subcontractor, when he thinks that you're going to pay him. And sometimes they're like, are you going to do it within 30 days? Oh, wait, no. Is it 60? How about never days?
That's Trump's religious experience.
Yeah, I don't trust carpenters. This is my...
Oh, God. No pun intended. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are in a spiritual quest and you are looking for proof that a God exists, this clip number 14 might be that one, but I will say no, it's actually not God. It's the legal system. Here is CNN's Caitlin Collins and Oliver Darcy reporting on Alex Jones having to liquidate InfoWars, ladies and gentlemen. So after this, stick around for our pitch for a GoFundMe for us to purchase InfoWars. But here is that clip.
Breaking news for you tonight as the InfoWars host and known conspiracy theorist Alex Jones has just moved to liquidate his personal assets to pay the families of the victims of the Sandy Hook massacre. Alex Jones owes those families more than $1.5 billion in damages over his repeated lies and claims that the shooting was a hoax. Joining us now is senior media reporter Oliver Darcy. And Oliver, I mean, tell us what's happening here and what this means for Alex Jones.
Well, for one, the families are going to hopefully see some money. They haven't seen a dime since these judgments came down, meaning that Alex Jones owes them $1.5 billion for telling this really heinous lie about the Sandy Hook shooting back in 2012. It also means that he's no longer eventually going to own InfoWars, which is this conspiracy empire that he's used for years and years to peddle all sorts of lies and conspiracy theories. He's eventually going to lose control of that. It is a little bit confusing because his company's in bankruptcy court and he's personally in bankruptcy court, but because he owns the company, it's part of his personal assets, this does mean he will lose control of the company.
Okay, so I don't know how much this is going to go for, but maybe we should think about raising some money here.
Come on, it's a little mean. I mean, did you see this guy earlier this week before this announcement was made? Does this make you happy to see a grown man breaking down in this manner?
We're going to beat these people. I'm not trying to be dramatic here, but it's been a hard fight. And these people hate our children. We're going to...
Oh, you know what? I saw a longer version of that clip, and is it Owen? Who's that other guy next to him?
Owen Schroyer. It'd be great to have Owen Schroyer.
It was somebody was looking away, just sort of like, this is uncomfortable.
Hey, Owen,
is he fake crying there? So I guess
of course. Yeah, that was a performance. I mean, but I do think we should buy InfoWars so we can make like Carl the Cuck Slayer, fill up our liquid IV.
Oh, wow. So you want wage slaves, huh?
Yes.
Okay. He deserves everything he's gotten here. The level of harassment that he directed towards the families that had lost their children in a mass shooting, their elementary school children in a mass shooting, it was both like deliberate, it was a robust harassment campaign that he actively fomented and did so for years and years and years. So
and I mean, not to mention the type, and they're not the most sympathetic of victims, but the people who have he's addicted to this sort of like rabbit hole bull crap.
Yep.
He's alienated so many people from their families, and there's so many people who have lost like uncles and fathers, mainly I would probably say, that have just like alienated themselves from their entire like social circle because of this insane crap about conspiracies.
Should we do number 15? What do you think?
Is that Rogan?
Yeah.
Yes, please. So Joe Rogan is weighing in on the Trump.
Well, he
guilty
starts with
verdict.
Scheinbaum, doesn't he?
Yeah, so I'd seen a shorter clip of this, and then I went back to look at some of the further context, and I was like, how did they get into this conversation? And it starts off worse than I anticipated, with a little anti-Semitism from Rogan and some racism about Mexican people, which then leads into, some more racism about black people as it relates to Donald Trump. Lots here in this 2.5-minute clip.
Claudia Scheinbaum was elected the country's first female president after a bloody election campaign that saw 37 candidates assassinated. And that's our neighbor.
Whoa.
We live next to a fucking crack house.
That's on fire.
A crack house on fire run by a Jew. First lady. More than 3 dozen
Can you
candidates
pause it
were
for a sec?
assassinated, including a...
Yesterday, we had Alex Avina on the show to talk about the historic elections in Mexico. The quality of life for working class and middle class Mexicans under AMLO, whose party Morena, Claudia Sheinbaum, is also a part of and will be the first female president in the history of North America, also first Jewish president. They have introduced proposals such as a raising the minimum wage on, I think, an annual basis, pushing for a national healthcare system, affordable housing, constructing train lines. It's been a robust reinvigoration of the social safety net down in Mexico, and
lower poverty.
They actually
Poverty is lowered. Yep.
Yes, the criticism from the left in Mexico of AMLO's tactics has been that he's been too militaristic and too much of a police crackdown on drug users and the drug war. So this is just obviously, I guess I'm not expecting that kind of analysis from Rogan, but it's also just not, AMLO even, did what the right would have wanted, which is a police force crackdown on drug users. But it doesn't matter. Apparently it's a crack house down there.
And just to be clear, the 37 candidates, this doesn't make it any more less horrific, but just so that it's clear that we're not in the presidential race. They were,
mayoral
candidates that weren't running nationally, local candidates or whatnot, because the things in Mexico have gotten increasingly violent around, drugs. And meanwhile, she won with, the greatest margin of any, certainly of Mexican presidential politics. But
continue. I just wanted to put that out there.
A crack house on fire run by a Jew. First lady. More than 3 dozen candidates were assassinated, including a local government candidate in Central Puebla State who was killed on Friday, increasing the total number of those killed to 37. Who the fuck would want to run for office in Mexico?
Dude.
That is so crazy. That's so crazy. And look how few people. Look, 20,000 positions to fill and 70,000 candidates. If you have 20,000 positions in America, how many candidates you have? Probably a lot more, because nobody's getting assassinated. Right. That would be one way to start thinning the herd.
Yeah. Taking them out.
How far away? It sounds crazy, right? This is Mexico. It's not America. We don't. How far away are we from, seeing another JFK type situation?
Man, Jesus. Fuck. Could be close. Seems like there's a candidate that the government really doesn't want.
Yeah, there's one guy. What's his name?
Yeah.
The one guy who went to the UFC this weekend and got like a 30-second standing ovation.
Yep.
Almost as big as Dave in Ohio, but not quite.
Right.
Not quite.
They're changing the tone on this. I mean, like, you know,
Pause it for a
they're
second. I
doing
just
it.
want to
They
be,
want to try to make
you know, people. They're implying that the U.S. government wants to assassinate Donald Trump.
Yes. Yes. Also, Donald Trump got a standing ovation at UFC. Wow, that's really indicative of something. It's almost like if Kamala Harris showed up to a Hamilton performance and got a standing ovation.
Yeah, exactly.
Must be representative of the rest of the government, of the rest of the country.
And who knew that? Like these guys act like the UFC appearance is like I don't know, Hitler at that bureau or something like that. It's like, no one cares.
They're changing the tone on this. I mean, like, you know, they're doing it. They want to try to make him look like a bad guy, but people just aren't stupid anymore. I mean, there's obviously still like half the country doesn't get it, but
so many rappers. So many rappers are showing support for Trump now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Because now he's got a felony.
Right.
I mean, like, now they realize also he's getting trapped by the system, just like everybody's been rapping about. Being trapped by the system, this bullshit system. And you watch it happen with him.
Exactly.
Pause it for a second.
This is, like,
this is a guy, let's just be clear, who is now, what, 70, through his whole life, got away by himself, you know, by his own admission. He was given $300 million worth of assets from his father, maybe more. Had he just invested that money, he'd have $1 billion. I mean, had he just put it in a mutual fund when he got it, he'd have $1 billion by now. He got away with discriminating against black people in his buildings. He paid off people. He drove a casino into the ground, which is almost like unheard of. Literally,
the house
to
always
lose money
wins.
gambling. Guess what? The system didn't screw this guy.
Yeah. Also, there's another sort of outlet for, you know, people saying black people, to generalize, get screwed over by the system. That's with the George Floyd protests, which these MFers were smearing every step of the way. Joe Rogan, I wonder what about that autopsy report? I heard about Tucker Carlson raised his eyebrow at that. Maybe I just adopt those opinions. Like, or maybe this is all just a conspiracy to elect Democrats, as opposed to, now all these guys agree that black people get screwed over by the police. Okay, go back and revise your positions about the George Floyd protests or any of this stuff. But of course, it's just like rappers say it because 50 Cent made a publicity appearance.
Well, they don't even really believe it, right? They don't even truly, if you were to nail it down, believe that black people are getting screwed over by the system, because that's why in their brains, and they don't even second guess it, they're like immediately going to black people must relate to Donald Trump because they're criminals too. I mean, that's like what the mode of thinking is. So that's why they don't see the George Floyd protests as valid or the pain behind that. It's because they're saying this, I guess, just to be polite, but in reality, they really just do believe black people are criminals and deserve mass incarceration.
Is there any more to this?
You watch it happen with him.
Exactly. Yeah, I was just talking about this. It's like I don't think they were counting on the black voter being like, hey, they just fucked that guy. That's what they do to us.
Yeah, this is what they do to everybody, and they pretend they're there for you while they're letting in immigrants.
Okay. Well, really full circle there. Because the other thing that the left has criticized about AMLO is that he has worked very tightly with both the Trump and Biden administrations to implement draconian policies along the U.S.-Mexico border. So everything that just full circle there for the race, the multiple ripples of racism on different strains, I should say, in that conversation.
I also like the idea is like, yes, black people are constantly facing false charges of fraudulent corporate accounting for cover-ups, hush payments. I mean, not quite.
Not quite.
Not quite.
But I look forward to all these guys covering, you know, the oppression that black people face at the hands of the police state going forward. I'm sure that's going to be a new commitment from all of these like liars.
You know who's also unhappy with Joe Rogan? It's a little someone who I think seems to be very upset that he hasn't been invited back on Joe Rogan since being on there 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, he was pretty humiliated last time he was on there. And there is nothing worse than when you are spurned by a friend. And here is Dave Rubin, sort of the living embodiment of that. And the funny part is that, like, I'm not sure what Rubin thinks, why Rogan is not being explicit about his where he's situated on the political spectrum. But here, Dave Rubin is confirming what we have said, both about Dave Rubin and Joe Rogan. These people are right-wingers. And Rubin has given up the pretense that he wasn't. And he's calling out Rogan, really, in many respects, for not owning up to the fact that he's a right-winger.
Or not doing what Dave had to do. Admit it.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So first off, did you catch that last second there? That was him over the weekend shaking hands with Joe Rogan, and big smile from Rogan and everything else. So, like, are you going to tell people, are you just not going to vote for him? Or, look, you could shake hands with somebody and not support them, but, like, what is it that you're not supporting? What is it that you don't think the Republicans are doing better? Again, all the answers really are not purely political. As you guys know, they're spiritual, they're personal, all of that stuff. But there is a political system. And if we're to participate in it, then I think you have to vote for people that are a little more in line with your values. The other reason I'm showing you that is I'm not a huge UFC guy myself, but do you think that the average person in that crowd, as you're watching all those people cheer, do you think they're old school, stodgy Republicans? Do they strike you as whiskey drinking, cigar drinking, thinking about war and money Republicans? Or are they just like people that like to watch people fight?
This is it, just like, you know, Dave Rubin has honestly the brain of a toddler.
Mm-hmm.
He has the brain of a toddler. Like, Republicans are old school Republicans are sitting around smoking cigars and, you know,
like the Daily Wire guys.
Looking at their ship in a bottle.
Right. Like the Daily Wire guys, which he would never be invited to one of their cigar leather chair hangouts because, like, he might try to have sex with one of them or something.
Yep. But he's saying that, like, aren't you amazed that UFC fans supportive of the Republican president?
So misanthropic.
It's unbelievable. What a shock.
About war and money Republicans, or are they just like people that like to watch people fight, and they're probably a little more libertarian and probably don't even care about politics largely, but they see now something in Trump? That is the point. That is, again, that wide tent thing I'm always looking for. Now check this out.
Pause it for a second. Wait.
Let's
just be clear on what Dave Rubin's definition of a wide tent is. Guys sitting around with cigars talking about war, all the way to guys who are going to watch other guys fight, maybe smoking cigarettes or waiting until they get outside to smoke cigarettes. This is a big tent.
Big
people.
tent.
This is
people going to
big
NASCAR races, people going to monster truck races, and there's some football fans in there too. This is the Republican Party.
This is a big tent.
But it's very much actually the same thing that Rogan said up top, where the system is going after Trump. What 50 Cent is saying there is, the system. You can agree or not agree. I'm just telling you what he's saying. The system is going after black people. Has been going after black people in a
That's
bit of
very
an
funny that he has to, like, distance himself from that. Exactly what I was just saying. Like,
exactly.
We're not going woke here, but for the purposes of Trump, let's just buy into a little bit of the woke stuff about the criminal justice system.
What he's saying is, look, because black people delusionally think that the system is after them, and it's actually after Trump, that's why black people appreciate Trump. Now they're deluded, but that's what's happening.
Right.
50 Cent is saying there is, the system. You can agree or not agree. I'm just telling you what he's saying. The system is going after black people, or has been going after black people in a bit of an odd way over the years, and now we see him doing that to Trump. So Trump is our guy. So again, guys, it gets to the widening of this thing. These are groups of people. These are individuals first, and then groups of people who you would not think are all on the same side of things. I have no idea if 50 Cent and Joe Rogan agree on anything. I have no idea if 50 Cent and Donald Trump really agree on much of anything. But they are largely coming around to be like, oh, Biden and the Democrats are lunatics, so let's see if we can build something. And now, this is an interesting one, even the people who at the end of the day get it, but will still vote the other way, they're starting to freak out too. So on Bill Maher's Club Random.
Yeah, we're good on
Oh, good.
It's unbelievable.
He
how
has
wide.
room, yeah, he has room for like 8 personalities in his sort of universe of commentators.
I'm looking at like the cohort of people who are on Bill Maher's Club Random and aging rappers and Joe Rogan. And across this, I am making these broad pronouncements about what's going on in the society. And I'm really seeing it. I mean,
right.
This
50
is...
Cent was like the only person that he was, I mean, first of all, 50 Cent, I think, has had some like real financial issues and operates as a bit of a troll in the media space. So I'm glad, you know, he's giving them this stupid talking point. But like every other, you know, character trait that he listed there is everything that we've traditionally associated with conservative white men, aka the entire Republican base. And he's acting like it's novel.
Dave Rubin, it seems like every election cycle needs like, I'm actually picking up on something that's happening, and I really am convinced of it. And then, like, you know, whatever it is, a day after the election or 6 weeks after, okay, not so much. It's like the Dem exit. Remember that?
Yes. Well, it's the same. It's the entire construction of his whole career.
Yeah.
Which is that, you know, something's happening in the Democratic Party. I'm leaving. I'm the last liberal. Then there's Dem exit. Then it's a red wave. Now
Something
it's
odd. It's like, police are going after black people in a little bit of an
odd way.
Yeah.
In an odd way.
So
quirky.
So at the end of this episode of the Rubin Report, Dave makes one more entreaty to Rogan to put his support behind the Republicans.
Oh,
here.
good. I'm so glad we got to this.
The point is, Rogan, you get it. You get it. So if we flash that to that second clip we showed you at the top of the show of Rogan saying that Republicans are just as bad, it's just not true. So I think I proved it to you today, Joe. The choice is yours. You don't want to turn Texas, where you moved, into California that you fled. And I agree with that. That's why I live in Florida. But we also don't want to turn America into Africa. And that's what the Democrats are doing right now.
Wait, what?
Whoa.
Yeah. How is
I look forward to
America? How
continuing
is
the
the
con-
Democrats turning America into Africa?
Black.
Yeah, I'm trying to square this with the whole police just go after black people in an odd way comment.
A bit of an
Donald
odd
Trump
way.
is picking up like a non-African black people because they don't want it to go turn into Africa. Come on, Joe, just know what you're doing.
He's a nasty racist, huh?
What? Like what?
He's a Zionist.
Yeah.
Duh.
What does he even mean? Like, what does that mean? Africa.
Well, it's because he's doing the whole spin on Trump's that we're becoming a third world country, but he's like, I'm gonna push the limit here. They loved. I mean, they say the same version of the same crap all the time, right? But then there's an attempt to try to differentiate yourself and maybe be a little bit more racist, push the limits here. He's been making the rounds.
He was in New York
Rubin.
recently.
He was on Megyn Kelly's show. He was on the Russell Brand show. We played
Doing a
that, right?
doing a barnstorming trip. Wait, was he on Russell Brand's show or was Russell Brand on his show?
No, he was on Russell Brand's show.
Well, wait.
No, it was. I saw that stupid COVID logo.
Right. That's right. Right. Yeah. Although he was doing most of the talking, it was weird.
I mean, Russell could not be more like. It is funny to see whether it's Megyn Kelly or Russell Brand or obviously Ben Shapiro, who maintains like I would never come to your anniversary party, let alone come to your wedding. They all have contempt for him, and he just can sit there and take it. He'd be
what he's paid
the
by
hardest
Rumble to do.
person. Well, maybe not because he's mentally weak, but like he can take a lot of physical pain if he needs to, and
Right, I mean-
emotional and like he really can sit there and maybe it doesn't register to him that they have such like
Well, do
contempt
you
for
remember when
him.
Larry King? Remember
Yeah.
that scene where Larry King was on?
Took a
He
cell phone
interviewed
call?
Larry King back when
Yes.
Rubin was trying to pretend like he wasn't a right wing shill, and King is literally on his cell phone during the middle of this interview, and going like, "Just give me 1 second."
Literally, he was saying, asking about his like nephews or whatever, like baseball game, and not just saying like how'd the game go. It was like, oh, and then what'd you bat? Like follow up questions. like
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
But we
I
have the
mean-
beginning of this Rogan thing where he's talking about his experience in New York, which also stuck out to me when I watched this yesterday.
The Rubin Report, and yes, I survived a couple days in New York City. As always, we are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and Locals. Share, subscribe, tap that notification bell. Post-game wrap-up, RubinReport.locals.com. And if you sign up at Locals, absolutely free, you will now get our new newsletter, which has insider information. What am I eating? What am I drinking? What am I wearing?
Oh, wow.
What am I listening to? You can find out RubinReport.locals.com. And yes, I survived New York City. We were there for a couple days. I did Megyn Kelly's show. That was actually in Connecticut. Did Greg Gutfeld, of course. Did Jesse Kelly. A couple other Fox shows. Bounced around the city a little bit. And I will say, we're going to get into a bit of this later on in the show. I will say, at times during the day in New York City, it felt a little more normal to me, a little bit more like it used to feel. Although right around dusk, it's very bizarre. Something shifts. The business people all disappear and the zombies come out. And it's like this weird cross section of like fentanyl addicts, jihadists, African migrants, and a bunch of people wearing hoodies looking for drugs. A good time for everybody. Anyway, the theme. I'm glad.
These are hysterical people.
Where is he hanging out?
Where is he? Times Square?
Yeah, I think he might be just standing in the middle
But
of Times Square.
I mean, what New York does he remember? What are you talking about?
He's
This
a
is just, like,
racist, hysterical shut-in.
He
He never
fell as-
sees people besides he's in
Yeah.
an Uber all the time.
No, he fell asleep to the Thriller video and thought that was his exact experience.
He's like that mega church pastor who is like in private jets all the time. He's like, I'm not going to be in a tube with all these demons. like, I
Oh,
need a
yeah.
private jet. That's what
Right.
Dave Rubin is on. He's on that trajectory.
Right. He can't because he was getting questioned about why he takes private jets everywhere as a mega pastor, and he said that he would
I got a
be
good deal on it from Tyler Perry, and I'm not going to be in a tube with all these demons.
demons. Yeah.
I mean, look, I've been on some bad flights before, so I kind of get it.
We should probably do this story about Steve Bannon. Did you guys talk
Yes.
about this yesterday? Or
No, this is awesome, though.
No, it broke after it happened after the show. I think his the judge basically saying that he's got to go to jail.
All right. Well,
Isn't this kind of what Trumpers and QAnoners thought Trump was going to do to his opposition?
Yeah.
All of a sudden we book Bannon.
Well, I mean, Bannon it's amazing. This is the only thing he's going to jail for. Bannon was convicted of contempt of Congress because he refused to give testimony over the from the to the House committee that was investigating the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. And he was convicted. I don't know. What was he convicted in October of 2022? So it's been almost a year and a half. And he was allowed to remain free while appealing this case. He's lost his appeals. I guess this was a month or two ago. And was it yesterday that he was basically sentenced to prison? I'm a little bummed that he's getting like 3 weeks to get his stuff in order. He's been out for a long time. I'd say go directly to jail. Here is this is Steve Bannon outside of the DC courthouse yesterday reacting to being sent to jail.
All of this, besides the major legal issues that have to be addressed, all of this is about one thing. This is about shutting down the MAGA movement, shutting down grassroots conservatives, shutting down President Trump. Not only are we winning, we are going to prevail, and every number and every poll shows that. There's nothing that can shut me up and nothing that will shut me up. There's not a prison, there's not a prison built. There's not a prison built or a jail built that will ever shut me up. All victory to MAGA. We're going to win this. We're going to win at the Supreme Court. And more importantly, we're going to win on November 5th in an amazing landslide with the Senate, the House, and also Donald J. Trump back as President of the United States. Thank you very much.
The irony of this, of course, is that Congress wanted him to testify. And now he's saying he won't shut up when he goes to jail. He's going to be in jail, incidentally, if my math is correct, right up until the election.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he could get out for good behavior, and that really is going to be difficult for him because I know the impulse for him to make toilet wine is going to be just screaming in his brain. But perhaps he could be, I mean, that would be a difficult thing, but maybe Trump could talk strategy over the phone with him, collect calls. I don't know.
Who? Where did that come, that phraseology, all victory to MAGA, come from?
I don't know.
That's probably some fascist, like,
Exactly.
80s board game.
It sounds a little bit fashy to me.
Yeah, these, like, I mean, there was some, Tucker Carlson's becoming more and more obscure, and he was like talking about what spirituality means to him in this incredibly, like, obscure way, and how UFOs are a way for the government to separate the rest of the country from their spirituality or something like that. And I heard that, I'm like, this is inscrutable, but he read it in some fascist book at some time, and he fancies himself like a far-right intellectual, and I don't even think that can exist, but in the vein of William F. Buckley. And Bannon thinks highly of himself in that regard, too.
All right, let's do one more clip. This was pretty impressive. Everybody now, and where's that list? Do we have that list of who Trump is vetting for VP?
Yeah,
Can
Bradley's
we put that
pulling
up?
it up.
Yeah. Doug Burgum, obviously on the list.
Obviously.
Because of his
obviously.
riches.
I don't know
pay
how
for
you
things.
wouldn't do that. JD Vance is on the list. I think he's going to be the one who's ultimately going to get the nod. You, of course, also have Ben Carson on the list.
Of course.
Did Byron Donalds make that list?
He did. Vance, little Marco
Pop it
is
back up.
on the list as well.
Keep coming down. There's a longer list of people who I think should be in there.
Doug Burgum, Marco Rubio, Tim Scott, Elise Stefanik, who won't get it because she's a brunette.
But look, we've talked about this. The reason why you sort of release something like this is because you want to signal that you're willing to consider these people your vice presidents. You want some of the credit for fans of these people to think, okay, you have an open mind. And of course, it's going to end up being like JD Vance. I think it's probably more than likely. But so Byron Donalds, he's out there. He's got to basically audition for the vice presidential position. And what Donalds brings to the ticket, of course, is an ability to be a Black man who will basically say racism doesn't really exist. That in many respects, Black people may have had, plantation owners don't get credit for things like, room and board for free. Hey, that's a pretty good deal. Thank you for bringing us over to America. That's a pretty good deal. And even post-Reconstruction, things like Jim Crow, maybe we should take another look at that. Here
It's
is
good for the family.
Yeah. Byron Donalds. Why always look at the negative of these things? Here's Byron Donalds on Joy Reid's show.
Last question.
Which creates better people.
Last question, and then I'm going to let you go. Last question. We're out of time, but I'm going to give you one more question. During Jim Crow, could your family have existed? You are in an interracial marriage. Your wife is a white conservative activist. Could your family have existed at all during Jim Crow?
No, it could not, Joy. We all know that. But that's why I am blessed to live in America today as opposed to America during that time. But we cannot ignore the realities of not having fathers in homes. That is important for Black people today and all people today as we move forward for a better America.
We are out of time. What I'm grateful for is that we do not live in the Jim Crow era and that fathers do not face the threat of lynching.
I'm very grateful of that.
Perhaps don't bring up Jim Crow when you're trying to make that example. Representative Byron Donalds, thank you for being here, and we'll be right back. Last question.
His quote was about how LBJ's Great Society and Jim Crow was, or how the LBJ's Great Society broke up Black families. That was like the gist of what he was saying. It undercut the Black familial structure, and it's just patently false, because if you want to talk about policy reasons for, I don't know, his like privileging of the nuclear family, which I don't even buy into, but just putting that aside for a second, it is quite clearly the drug war, the mass incarceration, things like redlining, where Black people weren't able to participate in the economy in the same way. Continued
you know what else broke up? You know what else broke up Black families?
What?
Slavery.
Oh, right. Right. In fact, that was an explicit policy of slave owners in order to so their property wouldn't get a little bit too cozy with their other family members. Yeah, she kind of cornered him there on his wife, but
impressive. No, I couldn't have married my wife, but I mean, fascinating.
You brought up Jim Crow because you're caping for white supremacy, Byron. Let's be real about it.
It really is amazing how low certain people will stoop to. It's one thing to be a conservative. It's another to saying when Black people were second-class citizens, and I mean real, literally second-class citizens, there was a lot of benefits that we got out of that.
Yeah. Having to use a different water fountain was really good for my desire to go raise my kid.
Well, there's a version of this for white women right now with the whole trad wife movement, right? With all of that's what that is, or just me participating in society as a voter or as a full citizen actually was worse off for me, and I'm better off not having those rights. And the people that consume that are either white misogynists in that instance or white racists in the other instance. So that's what he was doing, auditioning.
All right. 10 IMs and then we're out of here for the week. Miller time. He's so disgusting. Africa is such a beautiful continent and has the strongest legacy of decolonialism and socialism in the world besides Central America. What the F is his problem with a continent population that did nothing to him? F Dave Rubin so much. He honestly is the most disgusting person on the right because he's the most hypocritical of all of them.
Craven. Yeah, I mean, he's pretty maxed craven. Out and Craven and that sort of stuff.
Tommy from Yakubia. Happy Friday, folks. Long in the tooth comes to the same place as don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
There we go. Matt said that too. Preempted you.
Tic-tac-toe. Trump is saying that he has the support of evangelicals, and that's all that matters. God is secondary in this context. Quiet part loud as always. Trump is the imperfect vessel. Oh, man, is he imperfect. My pillow, the ruses. My pillow's other uses. What percent of the Adelson and whatever shakes down from the oil and gas industry money do you figure ends up in his pocket versus what is used for his campaign versus what he spreads around to other Republican candidates? It's kidding about the third part. Yeah, exactly. Well, I bet you a lot of it goes into his legal defense fund. Mm. I bet you that's a lot of that money is not even given to a campaign per se.
Yeah. Comes in and goes straight out to lawyers.
Kaylin Mack. Happy Friday, MR crew. Recently, my friend told me he wants to live off the grid on a solar-powered compound libertarian style. His main complaint is the way laid up overpays contractors and the way their union operates. I sent him the video you talking with that caller asked these questions. 3. 1, should people be dependent on government? I forgot the second. Should women have to contemplate abortion? Fingers crossed. He doesn't get too serious about going libertarian. Indeed. Zane, not only is it important to call Trump a convicted felon, it's also really fun. Don't know why anyone wouldn't want to do it. Dave from Jamaica. Folks, I get most prayers in history. God won't respect me if I pray to him.
Yeah.
Got to bring something to the table. You pray to God. I make deals with God. All right, where are we? We got about 4 more. Omega. Hi, crew. When was the last time you drank a cigar? Ruben apparently hinted at his next venture of drinkable cigars and why like Trump rant. What?
It is interesting how Russell Brand is also doing an exclusive with Don Jr. on Rumble. And the picture showed Russell smoking a cigar, which he's long been clean to the point he wouldn't drink coffee for a little bit. So, I don't know, just something to monitor.
Teacher Brian. Trump talking about God sounds like a kid doing a book report when he hasn't read the book and all his info is from hearing his friend talk about it.
Yeah.
Also, he doesn't trust that his friends knew what they were talking about. Yes. Hank Aaron, 715. I think Bannon is modifying the biblical saying, all glory to God. Maybe that's
it's all power to
that's
the
what it
Soviets.
is. El Conniption. While we're on Dave, did the crew see his Hamas wouldn't rape these cows tweet from a few weeks ago? Dave's heart is black and shriveled. I think we talked about it. And the final I am of the week. Let's see. Who should we go with here? In honor of the Celtics, Rob from Dedham. Alex Jones should just ask his handlers at the CIA for some cash to help. They certainly have made enough off the books money to bail him out. Sam, which is better, 24 Cs or 86 Cs? It's such a different game now. It's also, I knew he would ask a question about the Celtics. It's such a different game. You know, things happen so fast, but these guys are they just seem to dominate in a way, but you can also close a 22-point gap so quickly in this NBA that it's hard to assess.
Well, specifically the Celtics, because their three-point shooting is so elite.
It started. These comebacks started with the Warriors in like the mid 2010s, where they would always be down like 15 in the third quarter, and you're like, that's going to disappear after like 4 Steph Curry shots, and now the entire league's caught up.
Well, there's a whole different thing. But, like, you know, my dad is always just like, I don't like the way the game's played now. Too much three-point shooting behind the arc. Love you, Dad. But it's like, no, it's more exciting. The fact that they can shoot in this way,
the pace of this game is just so different. The pace is different, and the strategy is so different.
Yeah.
It's so different. You know, like it used to be just sort of, you know, get it to your big man in a post-up game. And now it's just sort of like the only reason why you post up is to kick it back out.
But the funnest part of the game always was like Larry Bird, like shooting threes, right? Like even before the 3-point era, the threes were a very fun part of the game, and it's good that it's back.
Yeah.
Bradley, Matt, Emma, great job this week. Great job, John Aarons and Dorsey Shaw and Julie Seder and Isaac and Chris and Maria and Kelly, Corey and Jacob on the AM Quickie. And of course, all glory to Kyle, who made this show possible. All right, folks, see you Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light fall. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive,